Juan Leyva on the play. Azorius aggro against Jonathan Hobbs on Esper control. Players have some hands sitting there. Get confirmation on if there was any mulligans here, as Leyva will start things off shortly. Hobbs did mulligan to 6. Leyva's on the play with Leonin Vanguards, the turn 1 action. Not the biggest creature, but it gets out of hand later.
And even though, both Juan Leyva and Eric Hawkins playing Azorius aggro, very different lists. I mean, there is a deep pool of good, cheap white creatures to pull from. Leyva doing, the life gain sort of thing, and Hawkins not so much.
And Leyva actually has the 1 into double 1 on turn 2, a second Vanguard and Legion's Landing. That means he'll get the trigger off of that first Vanguard. I suppose the second as well, but relevantly he'll attack for 2 and gain 2 life here. Up to 22 versus Hobbs at 18.
Excellent start here for Leyva. I don't think you can really play this matchup to try to play around everything. I think your best bet is to kind of ignore that Kaya's Wrath is there and try to beat everything else.
Mm-hmm. And also, he's just set up to transform Legion's Landing on turn 3 if that goes off without a hitch, which kind of does beat the sweepers.
It helps. I mean, again, once Hobbs gets the card advantage engines rolling, cranking out a 1-1 every single turn, not that effective, but if you can kind of get Hobbs low enough, Adanto can help finish off the job.
Well, speaking of card advantage engines, Search for Escanta is the turn 2 play for Hobbs. It takes a while to get set up, and he is behind right now. That is a good start. So Leyva's going to go to combat, gain 2 life to 24 off of those Vanguards. Here's an attack with all 3 creatures. He'll transform that Legion's Landing. 5 damage coming across. Hobbs will fall to 13. Leyva will go up to 25 from that Vampire token. It looks like History of Benalia sitting at the front of the hand. And that's going to be the play. A lot of pressure here.
Yeah, this is the kind of opening that Leyva wants here, and I think the way to approach the matchup is just get on top of Hobbs, hope to either win the game on the 4th turn or hope that Kaya's Wrath is not involved in the game.
Hobbs is going to flip over a second Search for Escanta with the trigger from the first. Ooh, and a big miss for Hobbs. No 3rd land. Can he even win this game anymore?
Well, he does have 2 midnight copies of Cryocranarium. You have land number 3. That gives you some shot. It looks like Hobbs' hand, though, is quite bad on top of missing the 3rd land drop. I think 3 copies of Teferi Hero Dominaria in hand right now.
Yikes. I think there's a Moment of Craving. That might be it for remotely castables. Could have 2 copies of that, actually. But that just kind of trades with History of Benalia, as we see Leyva does make the 2nd Night token here. And Benelish Marshal pre-combat, and Hobbs has seen enough.
That's the draw right there. Get it done on turn 4. Even if Hobbs had land drop number 3, I don't think that would have been... Even if he had 4 lands in Kaya's Wrath there, I don't think that draw would have been good enough that game.
Yeah, just a lot going right for Leyva there. Though players are going to go to sideboards here. For Jonathan Hobbs, he will need some help. The sideboard's pretty creature heavy, actually. It's kind of an interesting take. There's 4 Basilica Bellhaunt, 4 Thief of Sanity, 3 Duress, 2 Hostage Taker, another Kaya's Wrath in there, and an Eldest Reborn. What do you like here?
I like a lot of the creatures that are involved here. I like bringing in the Kaya's Wrath, the 2 copies of Hostage Taker, and the Basilica Bellhaunts, Azorius aggro can certainly overpower that sort of card, but I think Hobbs wants to have a little bit more, something a little bit more proactive, and something that will induce Leyva to put more onto the battlefield, allowing the sweepers to clear up everything.
And over on Leyva's side, you mentioned that he has some help here on the sideboard, and in fact, this is one of those matchups that they splash blue in the Azorius deck for. We have 4 Tocatli Honor Guard, 3 Baffling End, 2 Dovin Grand Arbiter, that's the big one you were talking about before the match, 2 Negate, a Conclave Tribunal, a Selective Snare, and a Johnny Adversary of Tyrants, and a Spell Pierce. A couple good options for him.
Yeah, the counter spells here are really good at fighting the sweepers and planeswalkers, and the 2 Negates and the 1 Spell Pierce. And I think the Ajani and Dovin give Leyva a different dimension of attack and a little bit more protection against sweepers. Dovin can help you recover from a sweeper. Ajani's minus allows you to get stuff out of the graveyard. Both of those cards also can be aggressive when you're on the front foot, so I think it's a good balance there of not dampening his pressure, but also giving him some protection against sweepers.
Yeah, Ajani really good at just ramping your creatures up. They can put you out of range for Cry of the Carnarium or get a creature back. And he also has kind of the split. You usually see more Ajanis, but those 2 Dovins, they are also pretty good here.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Standard quite a lot over on StarCityGames.com. We are ramping up to the Mythic Championship. If you're looking for some great Standard content, you can check them out over on the website. And also, if you're not subscribing to our newsletter, what are you waiting for? It's free to sign up for. You can check that one up. You get highlights from some of our best articles, dates and locations for upcoming tour stops, find out about invitational qualifiers near you, get you qualified for the invitational SCGCon Summer coming up in June. You can find that all at goes.starcitygames.com/newsletter.
Free. $0 to sign up. Things you might find of value for no money in exchange. So go sign up.
Yeah.
Where do you do it? Where do you do it?
It is rare that you get a better deal than something for nothing.
That's why it's a turn of phrase, because it doesn't happen.
You get it.
Doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah.
Got into it with Hawkins a little bit. Because in game 2 we played a Snubhorn Sentry.
You didn't like that.
And it sucked. It obviously sucked.
Yeah.
And
it's a 0 power creature.
And Hawkins got just completely trashed that game. Was never competitive.
Did he get any hits for 0?
He drew running. Oh yeah, he did.
All right.
He drew running perfects for like 3 or 4 turns. Still, game wasn't competitive. I'm interested to see what Juan Leyva wants to do here, because to me, I cannot countenance playing with a 0 power City's Blessing required creature against all Terminates and Sweepers.
And you mentioned that his argument largely revolved around Cry of the Carnarium, but
Correct.
Something you talked about in Game 1 is going to hold true. You think you just kind of shove, make them have stuff, hope you have Spell Pierce if they have it?
The notion that you are going to have a Snubhorn Sentry, you are going to get hit with Cry of Carnarium on turn 3, losing everything but the Snubhorn Sentry. And then the Sentry is going to be involved, and then the Sentry is going to be involved in a comeback in a game that you win, sounds literally impossible to me. That could not happen. It could not happen ever in a million years. Would that actually? So you curve out. You have your Sentry. You get hit with a Cryocanarium. So you're down all your cards.
Yep.
Your opponent's at 17. You untap. You still have. Again, I want to clarify here, a 0 power creature in play. That's still the case. You're nowhere near the City's Blessing. Again, everything else died. So you have 4 permanents to play, 3 lands, and your O3. And then 10 minutes later, you find your friends and you go, you can't believe this crazy game I just won. So I got hit with, I lost everything. But then I had the Sentry. I untapped, I played as Johnny, put a counter on it, hit for 1, down to 16. And 10 turns went by. They couldn't stop it. And then I won it. You wouldn't believe it.
And
your
friends never ask about the fact that you won because of the Johnny emblem and the Sentry.
Right.
It didn't actually matter at all.
No, it's not even that it wouldn't matter. I'm saying what I'm describing is impossible. You cannot win the game. The math of like draw steps and the cards they're playing does not bear out in a way to make that happen even 1% of the time. So all of this, I understand it sounds like I'm just kind of dogging on Eric right now, which is true, but to sort of dovetail it back to the broadcast a little bit, I'm interested to see if Juan is going to cast the O3 here, and then what does that game look like should he cast it?
So send your screenshots, your Magic Arena, your Magic Online photos of you with your 0-3 Sentry against Esper. Tag at Basic Mountain. He wants to see it.
Yeah, I want to see the opposing side of the battlefield that has a Teferi emblem, and you only have the O3. They won't even kill it. They'll let you have the O3 to send a message.
Better get that last plane.
No, yeah.
Don't want you casting another 0-3.
Hold on. I gotta keep track of the City's Blessing. Can I count your permanents real quick? All right, 1. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not finding number 2. I'm not. Seriously, I'm looking. You let me know. It's hard to keep track of the game state here.
Leyva did mulligan to 6 here, and he has a 1 power creature on turn 1. You like this Leonin Vanguard?
Yeah, it attacks. It has a point of power.
All right.
So the game, like what happens when you attack with it is, assuming your opponent has no blocks and doesn't play a card, they take 1 point of damage. Their life total goes down, and with the goal of the game being eventually to get them to 0, that's something I can kind of I can get behind that a little bit.
You're just giving this away for free.
Free tips.
Something for nothing, as Jonathan Hobbs has a Thought Erasure on turn 2, a hand of 2 negates, a Hollowed Fountain, a Healer's Hawk, and a Danto Vanguard. That Vanguard's pretty nice, though. Hobbs is going to go for one of those negates.
And you know, this is the type of hand here where I think Leyva needs to dump out as much as possible. It's going to be hard for him to outpace a sweeper on the other side, but if Hobbs stumbles, or maybe he doesn't have a sweeper, you can get a good battlefield going, hold up negate. That could be a route to win this game.
Hobbs is going to keep the card on top off the Surveil, looks like, as we go back Leyva's way. He'll shock for that Hollowed Fountain. He's at 18. Pretty likely to just deploy the Vanguard here. You kind of walk into a potential Cry of the Carnarium, but what are you doing?
Who cares?
If he has it?
Who cares?
Yeah.
You're just going to lose to something else. Cast your stuff, and if Hobbs stumbles, you got a shot.
Yeah, and he does play the Vanguard, go back Hobbs' way. Drawn Catacomb, there's the Cry.
Yeah, imagine if he had the O3 left over. I mean, what kind of trouble would Hobbs be in right now?
He'd have 3/10 of the City's Blessing. He drew a land, that's 4.
Yeah. You'd have the City's Curse. No permanence. No permanence.
Basic Plains and Healer's Hawk for Leyva, though Hobbs is at 19. A lot of work to do. Hobbs is going to continue making land drops, unlike Game 1. That's a problem.
Yeah. Look at what just happened to Hobbs' life total. Again, game not going great for Leyva.
Yeah.
We understand this.
But he's still making inroads.
Yeah, 18. That number went down.
And Leyva's one up. He's at 19 as Chemister's Insight is cast end step for Hobbs. Not a good negate target. Leyva's going to let that one go. Looks like Vraska's Contempt in the holding. There's Teferi. He's shotgun for Watery Grave. Got to imagine he's going for the Planeswalker here. Could be a precognitive perception as well. And actually, he's passing.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got to be a little bit mindful of the planeswalkers that Leyva sideboarded in. So assuming that, you're so far ahead at this point, you can afford to be a little bit conservative. You have something to do with your mana here in the draw 3 end of turn if nothing happens. And at this pace, Hobbs can just kind of slowly but surely make his land drops play around everything.
Yeah, I spoke without thinking, too. He knows about a negate right now. So leaving up Perception is actually very strong, and that's what he's going to do end step. Leyva has no action. Had to choose between an Ajani he drew and leaving up negate, and this draw 3 is really just kind of kicking the pants.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hobbs did play the Watery Grave untap last turn, representing something was going on. So I respect leaving up the negate in that spot.
Yep.
I think, though, I would have cast it on the draw 3. I mean, I don't know what the Hobbs knows about it. I don't know if it's going to get much better than that.
Yeah. At some point, there's just so many looks where Hobbs is going to find something.
Yep. Or just make enough land drops to play a card and counter back.
And so Leyva getting a little bit flooded, but it is getting him to the point he has a 6th land here as he's casting a Johnny and leaving up that negate. So that is something, but he's facing down a fistful of cards on Hobbs' side.
Again, not going well, but this is the best that Leyva can do.
Johnny to 5, Healer's Hawk getting a +1/+1 counter. There's an attack. Is there a removal spell? Hobbs is at 15 currently. He has a Vraska's Contempt, though he probably wants to point that as the Planeswalker. He also has to worry about that negate still.
Yep. Although what's happening here is there's nothing in the graveyard of note, so you don't have to worry about a Johnny's minus here. And you can also manage the Ajani by simply killing the opposing creatures as well. So there's no real pressure for Hobbs to do anything about the Ajani.
He took 2 off the Hawk. He's going to go for the Contempt end step. That's met by the negate, and he will also use Moment of Craving there to take care of the Healer's Hawk and go back Hobbs' way. Back up to 15 off of that 2 life. And here's Teferi. That's going to take care of a Johnny, and Leyva just left with no cards in hand and 6 lands on the battlefield. 7th land there for Hobbs. Drowned Catacomb. We go back to Leyva. And I don't know if there's a sequence of draws.
Great concession.
Gonna pack it up.
Great concession. People play out this game. There's actually something I appreciate about Teferi. I have covered a lot of Magic over the years, of course. And there's a lot of planeswalkers where people just play it out, even though it's you have nothing going on. They basically get personal Howling Mine. The emblem's going to beat you eventually. It's deterministic, 100%. Teferi engenders such a feeling of hopelessness. More extreme than any planeswalker that I've ever seen, besides perhaps Jace the Mind Sculptor, that people just pack it in. They do not play it out, which I really respect.
I've conceded to a lot of Teferis and a lot of wilderness reclamations where I technically was still in the game because, as I tell my opponents, I am way too bored for that.
Exactly. And, there's an argument. You got this card. It's, powerful and a 9 out of 10 in terms of frustration to play against. Dial it up to 11. Make it worse. Make it so people don't want to play it out. It's actually better gameplay than people trying to ram their head through, personal Howling Mine plus a Terminate button for 17 turns.
And for a format that has some decks that take a lot of work to actually close the game, we've had really good round turnarounds this weekend.
I think that's I spoke about this earlier on the broadcast with Cedric. There's a lot of things I like about the standard format, and near the top of the list, possibly at the top of the list, is the games get over with. We don't have issues with time. If people actually played it out in the face of Nexus of Fate or Teferi, then that would be potentially problematic. But most people, because it essentially becomes deterministic how the outcome of the game is going to be, people just let it go. The Sultai mid-range decks attack a lot across all matchups, and obviously the aggressive strategies get it over with fast too.
Yeah, so we are in the month of February now for our creature collection. That means that this month's promotion is Yeti Steady Go. For fans of that collection, we do have playmat sleeves and player bundles available at StarCityGames.com. Big fan of this little Yeti. Todd likes this one a lot. What's your stance on Yeti Steady Go?
So sometimes I think that we strain a little too far on the rhymes. This one's good. Art's cute. I would definitely put this in the upper 50% of our creature collections for sure.
Here's a missed opportunity for me. I think you're going to hate it, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is a missed opportunity for Yeti Steady Go.StarCityGames.com/creature collection,
where you can find your Yeti Steady Goes.
Right.
Playmat sleeves, player bundles, whole shebang. Go check it out. And I know that sounds like a criticism, but if you asked me to come up with 12 of those every year for forever, I would be stretching myself a little bit thin on some of them.
Yeah, it becomes a lot of work at some point, and also I would have a problem where I would start submitting ones that I know are really grown-worthy and bad because I would take joy in doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, there's an agency/moral hazard issue with it as well, no question.
Players are drumming up hands here in the deciding game number 3. I believe they're currently both looking at 7s this go-around. Jonathan Hobbs dispatched a similar deck 2-0. This one looking a lot closer. Juan Leyva on the play. Here's Leonin Vanguard in turn 1. No sentries.
So far, so good. Juan's doing a lot to earn my respect over the course of these games. Not really playing around sweepers he can't beat. No 0-3s. Maybe he wins, maybe he loses, but he's conducted himself quite well, I would say.
Turn 2 play, there's Glacial Fortress, Blue Mana Online, and Adanto Vanguard on the play. He should get at least one hit out of that, barring a moment of craving. And Search for Escantas at turn 2 for Hobbs.
Good opening here for Hobbs, but Leyva probably actually kind of happy that it wasn't a removal spell.
Right.
Though could signal that Hobbs is setting up a turn 3 sweeper.
So Leyva does want to plan around that a little bit. He's going to Shock for Hallowed Fountain. There are some pretty powerful 3-mana spells in the deck. See which one he has.
Maybe one of the Dovins out of the board.
It's going to be Benelish Marshall. That's going to turn up the heat. The attack for 4 turns to 6.
Also, a nice thing about this, it outpaces the Cryocranium a little bit. You at least get something left over when it's all said and done.
Excuse me, it's actually 7. The Vanguard now has 2 buddies, so that's going to turn up the heat a little bit even more. Hops down to 13. I like this deck because it's very close to one of the intro decks on Magic Arena. Just Leonin Vanguard and Johnny's Primate's just a thing that they give you there.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You're already ready to go.
Here's a Johnny's Carnarium for Hobbs. It's going to clean up everything but the Marshal, but Leyva does still have some leftovers. And a number of cards, still 4 in hand. Just going to be an attack for 3 with the Marshal. Hobbs down to 10.
And notably for Hobbs, no white mana here. Leyva can be very aggressive playing into the maw of Kaya's Wrath here because Hobbs at least 2 turns away from being able to cast it.
And a couple 1-drops are in hand. He's going to play Legion's Landing. There's a Healer's Hawk in the hand as well. And he's going to cast that one too. Ooh, and another Vanguard.
Gang's all here.
Yeah. And this is actually 10 points if this goes unchecked. This is lethal attackers. And Hobbs is going to play Isolated Chapel. So white mana is now online, but not double white for Kaya's Wrath.
And as you mentioned earlier here, this could be the kind of game where even if Hobbs is able to stabilize here, even if he's able to survive and resolve a Wrath the following turn, the Legion's Landing transforming might be enough to eke out the final few points.
Pretty good play for Hobbs, though. Hostage Taker takes care of the Marshal. Leyva was empty-handed. We'll go back his side. He's going to draw a card. Generally, not a deck that's going to clean up a Hostage Taker. He's probably just going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of removal, but in the main deck, I'm sure most of that, if not all of it's been cut.
He has some action. This is Johnny's Pride Mate. He has 2 sources of life, actually 3 sources of life gain on the table already. The Vanguard's going to trigger. He'll go to 20. That'll pump the Pride Mate, and he has 2 life-linking attackers if he's interested in that. And here comes the team. Legion's Landing will transform. Hostage Taker going to jump in front of the Vanguard. That's the 2-2 versus the 1-1. That makes sense. 2 lifelinkers connect. Hobbs to 8, Leyva to 22. Pride Mate grows ever larger, up to a 5-5 now. Passes back to Hobbs. Search for Escanta trigger. Watery Grave hits the bin. Not interested in more blue and black mana.
Can Hobbs hang on here? 2-3 bodies, so good at stabilizing here. You would like to have a removal spell for that Pride Mate, though. Way too big for the Hostage Taker. You got a flyer. You have your Danto. It's possible that Leyva can get these last few points across, but it's going to be hard.
Some Mortify on the Pride Mate. Leyva did not have the mana to activate a Danto there, so we're going to go back his way. Hobbs also had that second white source, the 5th land there, Isolated Chapel, so going forward, we'll have access to Kaya's Wrath if he even needs to from this point. Just Healer's Hawk attacking for Leyva. Hobbs to 6, Leyva to 23. No action, just leaving up the Adanto for now. Hobbs had a look with the search, and he kept it. He'll play that Benelish Marshal. Drowned Catacombs the land for turn. Passes to Leyva. Leyva will make that lifelinking Vampire before going into his turn. Going to take a little bit more work to attack on the ground.
Yeah, Leyva several turns away from being able to make any inroads there.
Here's a Dauntless Bodyguard that's going to try to protect the Healer's Hawk. Hobbs will respond to that with a Mortify on the Hawk. And then instead going to be pairing with that Vampire token. Still mana up to leave up a Danto, so he's going to pass back Hobbs' way. Trigger on Search for Escanta. 4 cards in the graveyard, a little bit off of the transformation, but his hand's a little juiced. I want to say it's 2 sweeper effects, Kaya's Wrath and Cry of the Carnarium. There's a black card anyway. It might be a different one.
I think one of the Basilica Bell haunts as well.
And Hobbs is going to attack with a Hostage Taker. That's a 3-4 because of the Marshal, so it can threatens to just trade with the board here. That's going to connect Leyva to 21. And Basilica Bellhaunt is the play post-combat. Hobbs will trigger that. He'll go to 9, and Leyva discards the Plains that was in hand.
Really enviable spot here for Hobbs where he's ahead on the battlefield. He can win in combat here. The only recourse that Leyva really has is to commit more to the battlefield, and Hobbs has Kaya's Wrath ready for that scenario as well. And in the meantime, if nothing's really happening, Search for Escanta is also threatening to transform in the near future.
Leyva made another Vampire token. Though that 4-5 Bellhaunt, that makes things even worse on the ground. And we're also at a point where even if Leyva has one of his Planeswalkers, Hobbs has pretty good means to apply pressure. He can just attack into Planeswalkers, and he has so many good attackers, he can just wear out the Adanto over time.
Yep.
Johnny's Pride Mate was the draw. He'll play that. So it was a choice between that and making a token off of the Adanto. He chose the 2-2. Can't do both. As we go back Hobbs' way, he's going to put Hallowed Fountain in the graveyard with Search for Escanta and draw for turn.
Yeah, I think once you see the Bell Haunts on the other side, if you think it's close, it's probably better to just play the card out of your hand rather than activate the Adanto.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of funny just how effective taking specifically Benelish Marshall with hostage taker is. You know, the 3-4 is kind of good in this matchup. 4-5 is really good. Turning your hostage taker into a 3-4, also quite good.
I mean, Hobbs got paid out just for having a 2-3 for 4. That was already a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Everything else from there has just been extra.
Here's another bell haunt. No cards in hand, though Hobbs will go to 12, padding that life total even more, while Leyva hasn't had a good attack for several turns. And that black card in Hobbs' hand is actually Vraska's Contempt. So he's got a lot of things covered here. Thinking about attacks, considering just the bell haunt, that is where he'll go, attack for 4. Leyva's still at 21. He is going to throw a vampire token in the way, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, all these combats are win-wins for Hobbs, however Leyva wants to manage it. Blocking, jump blocking, try to block and away to trade, just taking the hit. It's all good.
So the vampire jumps in the way, Leyva to 22. That'll grow the pride mate to 3-3 now. Leyva will draw for turn. He was empty-handed going in here. He is in quite a lot of trouble. I'm not sure what he can draw from this point. There needs to be some sequence of runners while Hobbs somehow draws blank with an active search for Escanta.
Well, you know, you do know what, I mean, things are really going badly for Leyva. A lot of fronts, as you just mentioned, but you know what he does have?
Creatures with more than 0 power.
The City's Blessing. The City's Blessing's on. He's got 10 right now, so.
Ooh. This could be the game.
This could be it.
Ooh, and Hobbs transforms a search, and here's a Teferi. And he's going to plus it, and that means he can untap the search and have that active this turn. And
Will Leyva play on?
A lot going against him. And Hobbs does untap Escanta the Sunken Rune and another mana source. That activation is up. Vraska's Contempt also at the ready. We go back Leyva's way. He makes one of those vampire tokens. Draws up to his second card.
Does he tap out?
You mean tap out as in quit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Glacial Fortress is the play. That one doesn't do anything. History of Benalia. Usually a very powerful card. Really late to the party here. There's a Night token.
Teferi, unassailable here.
End step, Hobbs will activate that Escanta the Sunken Rune. 3 lands, and there's Negate is the 4th card. Happy to add that one to the hand.
And that might be the last piece of the puzzle here because certainly no creature is improving Leyva's spot here. It can only be spells or planeswalkers, and Negate has that covered too.
Hobbs draws for turn, plus his Teferi up to 6. Picked up a couple lands, but the hand was already pretty well made. It's going to main phase, use Escanta the Sunken Rune. He has plenty of mana, and the Teferi will untap it anyway. Pretty good sequencing, and he finds Cryolic Carnarium.
Just wanted to survey the board really quick to get a little power toughness check.
No Subhor Centuries.
Yeah.
This gets them all. There's the cry.
Right. Imagine, but if you had the 0-3.
Just a Johnny's Pride Mate is left behind. And all of Hobbs' stuff still hanging out. No quitting Leyva, though.
No.
Has not seen enough. And here's an attack with the Hostage Taker and the 2 Bell Haunts. They have -2, but also +1. So this is an attack for 1 with the Hostage Taker and 2 with both the Bell Haunts. Looks like it is 5 coming across. Leyva to 18, seems. Hobbs to 10. Vraska's Contempt on the Pride Mate. Clean up that 1-1. And 2 lands were on taps to cast that. Hobbs up to 12. Leyva will make that second Night token. It's going to have to be a pretty hard-working night.
Yeah, he's off. It no longer has the City's Blessing also.
Ooh, second history. He's getting back to it, though.
Yeah, okay. Now
All right, here's 10. Here's 10.
All right.
Hobbs also has the city's blessing, though, so in that contest,
Yeah, I mean,
if he had a hostage taker for a century, he'd
then
get that online.
The final humiliation.
Teferi's to 7, and Hobbs is just leaving that negate face up.
Yeah.
Don't need to write that one down. I got this. Once again, activates on the main phase. It's gone to the Sunken Ruin. It's a backup Teferi in there. There's Chemist's Insight. That's the one he's going to take.
Well, a friend of mine once got into kind of a fun little wrestling match with Pro Tour champion Mark Herberholz, and he got him into some sort of arm lock. My friend's going, are you going to tap out or are you going to quit? And Mark screams, just break it. And Leyva has entered just break it mode. It could tap out, but no.
You got to actually win the game.
No, you got
need to show me.
Just break it.
I don't think you have it in you. Cast down on Night Token. Don't want that getting out of hand.
No.
That first history is going to Chapter 3.
Kaya's Wrath still uncast. Just in the opening hand, never played. We never got that far.
No.
We never got that far.
Maybe if he gets the Teferi to 8, he'll pad the life total with it.
Running up the score.
Yeah.
Like figuring out combat here.
Is this knight a good attacker against no blockers? Should I attack you at 12 or Teferi at 7?
Yeah.
Another history. Ooh, there's the negates. And then now Leyva's had enough. That negate, that's going to do it.
Beautiful.
Jonathan Hobbs, 2-1. Slays another Azorius aggro player, and he is on to the finals.
Yeah, you're seeing a little day late, dollar short, the back-to-back Azorius aggro opponents here for Hobbs. Just not quite enough pressure. Very hard. I think the balancing act